Dear students and my teacher friends, Namaskar. I welcome you to the presentation lecture on the skull. Now, the first question comes in our mind for this topic that how many bones are there in the human skull? So, as you can see here, over here it is written that in the human skull there are 22 irregular shaped bones are present. Now, if you go through the physiology book and even if you go through the internet, for example the Wikipedia site, then you will find this number that the human skull there are 22 bones are present. Now, uh, that means the ear ossicles, the malleus, incisors and stapes, and the hyoid bone we are not including in this skull bones. Otherwise, the number will become 22 plus 6 plus 1, that is 29. But in reality, the number of bones in the skull, that is 22. And the facial bones, their number is 14 facial bones. Now, in this lecture, we are going to study, we are going to observe the bones of the cranium and what are their names. And I have included many figures, so you need to observe those figures and you will find the exact location of the cranium bones. So now we are starting this presentation lecture. So here the cranium. What is cranium? So cranium is basically, as you can see, this one is the cranium, and the cranium is the bony structure and it is housing the brain. That means our brain is protected inside our cranium, and the cranium is made up of eight eight cranial bones. Now, which are these eight cranial bones? So, as you can see, in the cranium there are two parietal bones, then one is the frontal bone, then one occipital bone, and two temporal bones. So that makes the total, right now the total is 6. So we are adding two more bone, that is the sphenoid bone and the ethmoid bone. Now, in your syllabus, only the names are included, but as a student, if you are interested, so you can go through this information, and I leave it up to you that if you want to prepare, you can prepare. But if I explain this, then the lecture will become bore. So that's why I'm not explaining this thing, the same sphenoid bone and the ethmoid bone. Okay. Now another important aspect, that is the joint between the cranium bone. And the joint between the cranium bones are known as the sutures, and these sutures are basically the immovable joints. Okay, so what are the sutures? Sutures are the immovable joint between the cranium bones. So as you can see on the screen, in the green color, this zigzag line, this is the coronal suture, and it is present between the parietal bone and the frontal bone. So the name of the suture, the position of the suture, and where this suture is located, you need to remember this information. So first is the coronal suture, then the lamboidal suture. So it is present between the parietal bone and the occipital bone. Then the squamous suture. So where this squamous suture is present? So it is present on the edge. For example, this one is the temporal bone, and on the edge of the temporal bone, this squamous suture is present. Now, this sagittal suture. This one is the sagittal. And where this sagittal suture is present, so it is present between the right and left parietal bone. Now here, as you can see, the cranial floor is shown over here and view from above. Okay, so this is the floor of the cranium and we are viewing it from the above. Now here you can see in the skull there are many holes are present, and these holes are known as the foramina. And what these holes or the foramina are for? So, excuse me. So this foramina or the holes are the actually the passage for the nerves and the blood vessels. So once again, foramina are the holes which are present in the skull, and they are the passage for the nerves and the blood. And this one, for example, this one, okay, this is the large hole, okay, and this hole is known as the foramen magnum. And this foramen magnum, this opening, this large opening, is allowing the spinal cord to join with the brain. And which part of the brain? That is the brain stem. So with this, the spinal cord is entering into the cranium or our skull, and it is joining to the brain stem. So this information you need to remember. That is the about the foramina, that is the foramen magnum. Then for your theory, you can prepare this information. I am showing you. You can go through, you can read this information. Okay. Now I need to open another file. So 1 minute. Now here, this is the suture. As you can see on the screen, I am showing you one of the suture. So this is the suture. So this one is the one cranial bone, and this one is the another cranial bone. So this, we can say, this is the suture. Okay. And what are this suture? So where these sutures are present? So sutures are the joints between the cranial bones, and they present between the flat bones of the skull. Now the newborn baby, these sutures, they are flexible in the skull because the bones in the childhood, the bones are growing, that's why it is flexible. And since these sutures are flexible in the newborn babies and during the childhood, they allow the growth of the skull bone throughout the childhood. So we can say in the childhood, these are flexible, these sutures, and the bones are growing. But in the adult, these sutures are interlocking. Okay, they are locking themselves, and that's why in the adults, the joints between the cranium bones become immovable. Okay, and in the later adulthood, let's say at the age of 25 or 30, what is happening? These bones and the sutures, they are fusing together completely. Okay, so that is the meaning of this thing. This is the joint, that is the suture. Okay, now over here, this one is also very good figure and the important one. Here you can see the location of the parietal bone. Okay, this one is the parietal bones, Then the sagittal suture, where it is present. So as you can see, between the parietal bone, the joint, that is the sagittal suture. Then the lambdoidal suture. I am zooming. So this is the lambdoidal suture, and where it is present? So it is present between the occipital and the parietal bone. This information you need to remember. And the lambda point. What is lambda point? So lambda point is where the sagittal suture meets the lambdoid suture. Okay, so here this point is the lambda point. Okay, where the sagittal suture and the lambdoid suture meeting together. Then this one is the occipital bone. And now this names. Okay, frontal bone. So this one is the frontal bone. Then this one is the coronal suture. Okay, where it is present, where the frontal and the parietal bone they are meeting. Okay, then this term Pragma. Okay, what is Pragma? So where the sagittal and the coronal suture meet, that point is known as the Pragma. For example, this is the Pragma. Okay, then this one is the sagittal suture. Okay, where it is present, where the parietal bones meet. Okay, then this one is the parietal bone, and this bone, okay, occipital bone. So now these are the important figures, and since in this lecture I am only discussing the cranial bones, but in the figure they have shown the bones of the face. So the bones of the face are also in your syllabus. For example, the mandible, then the maxilla, then the position of this teeth you can observe. Okay, and all the names, in fact all the names you can go through, but here I have circled only the cranium bone, that is one bone, that is the frontal bone, but you simultaneously read all the names. Okay, for example over here clavicle is shown. Now this is also very good figure, frontal bone for example. So you will get the idea which one is the frontal bone. Then the parietal bone, this is the name, and you follow the arrow where the arrow is ending. Okay, parietal bone. Then the occipital bone. Okay, occipital. Then the temporal bone, for example. Okay, this one, this entire bone. This is the temporal bone. Now in this figure, occipital bone, frontal bone, parietal bone, occipital bone, in here, over here, frontal, occipital. Now this is very interesting figure. It looks like that someone's skull is blasted. Okay, and the all the bones of the skull they are flying. But I'm just joking, because every skull is important. All the skulls, all the human skulls, and because in all the skulls there are one brain, and all the brains are important. That's why. But for a joke, I am saying like that, that they are, because they have shown that way. It's like there is a blast and all the bones are flying. So now this is a parietal bone, and this one frontal bone. Okay, then parietal bone, occipital bone, the sphenoid bone. Okay, temporal bone, ethmoid bone. Then over here, temporal bone. Okay, and the face bone you prepare next for the next lecture. I will take on a face bone, but here, and these are the ear ossicle, the bones of the middle ear, that is the malleus, stapes, and the insus. In my previous lecture I have already shown you this ear ossicles, and now different figures and the names. Okay, red circle I have made for the cranial bones. Okay, and all the names, in fact all the names you go through. Okay, now this, all the bones, they are flying. Okay, then the sutures, all the sutures. Okay, and how we are viewing. So here, if we are viewing from this direction, so on the top, from the top we are viewing, and these are the sutures. Okay, parietal bone. Now this is the side view, bones are flying in the side view. Okay, occipital, parietal, frontal, this figure. Same bones but with the different angles we are observing. Okay, foramen magnum, the sphenoid bone. Here, this is green color bone, sphenoid. This green color, only the sphenoid bone. Okay, and the names, if you want, you can prepare the body, the lesser wing, greater wing. So I leave it up to you. If you want to prepare, you can prepare. Ethmoid bone. Okay, ethmoid bone. Then the names of part, but you don't have to prepare the parts. Ethmoid bone. You see, reddish brown color bone, only the ethmoid bone. Now for this figure they have used the color. It is not like that it is the same color, but to separate that bone, that's why they have used the another color. Ethmoid bone, superior view and the anterior. This one is the anterior and the same bone, but this is the inferior view. Okay, and here you can see the function of the cranium bone. Okay, so it is protecting, it is housing the brain. So with this, I have completed this presentation lecture of the skull, that is the cranium bone. I hope this lecture will help you in your studies, in your preparation for the exam. My name is Manish Kosti sir. I am from Ahmedabad, India. Bye bye. Namaste.